But let's just move on, viewers, because I want to move to a story that is of great concern. Sparked by Trump anti-India rhetoric, is now peaking in the West. And you'll be amazed after Peter Navarro, who is, of course, the man on your extreme right, viewers, and he is Trump's advisor of the White House. Now you have an Austrian economist who's called for the dismantling of India to put Russia's man, alluding to Modi, in his place. Gunther Fellinger, though a repeat offender, is also a YouTuber and is a well-known podcaster on social media. So he's an economist. He also runs a very influential think tank which advises the NATO, seems to suggest that it advises NATO on enlarging its membership. And he's a chairman of that think tank, so influential person. And he says, I call to dismantle India into ex-India. Narendra Modi is Russia's man. We need friend of freedom for Khalistan net. This is what this man is saying, viewers. He says that he wants to support Khalistanis and get them to attack in this country to break it down, balkanize it. Interestingly, this isn't the first time Fellinger has targeted PM Modi. The Austrian, who touts himself as a Rahul Gandhi supporter, had also attacked India's allegedly pro-Russia and pro-China tilt back in 2023. He says, break India plotters support for Rahul. I call for support for Indian opposition, US President, EU President to support Rahul Gandhi as the next Prime Minister of India in 2024. We have tried with Narendra Modi, but he's a pro-Russia, pro-China, pro-BRICS and a disaster for India and the free world. He must go. This is what he posted in August 2023. Several other Republican Party and Team Trump grandees like Lindsey Graham, Scott Bessent, Matthew Miller, and even mainstream European think tanks like the European Council for Foreign Relations have carried pieces critical of India's alleged fence-sitting over the war in Ukraine. Navarro's diatribe, however, took the cake for its duplicitous stridency, viewers. He also attempted to balkanize India by sparking some kind of a civil war, talking about Brahmins profiteering. Indian people must understand what's going on. He said, Brahmins are profiteering at the expense of the Indian people. We need to stop that. The sharply escalating rhetoric forces us to pose some questions, viewers. And I want to go across to Edward Price, and I also want to bring in Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Edward Price, who's a former UK official and senior fellow at the NYU, he's also been an advisor to, or a deputy rather, to the US's ambassador to the United Nations. David Price, the question that I want to begin by asking you is a simple one. Is this shrill rhetoric, particularly from the likes of Fellinger, Navarro, etc., who claim to be associated with NATO, indicative that the issue is acquiring a dimension greater than tariffs, that there's something more here?
No, not for now. I have to admit that Fellinger Jan, who is the gentleman you mentioned, I hadn't actually heard of him until your showrunners very kindly put me onto his tweets. And then I did a bit of digging, and this gentleman has called for the breakup of Brazil, the breakup of Russia, and so far as I can see, he's not actually affiliated with NATO. So I think we're in a very paranoid information moment. And of course, Indians are rightly very sensitive to any suggestion from the West that somehow we'll decide the borders or sovereignty or integrity of India. That harkens back, of course, to a troubled history of, frankly, imperialism. But no, I don't think that NATO and the West are the bad guys today. What I think has happened is that the United States, under its current leadership, and the president doesn't represent all views in the United States, but the current president, Donald Trump, has frankly insulted India. And so, of course, I understand that India and Indians are on high alert. But no, nobody in NATO is calling for the breakup of India, no.
Well, that might be so. But belligerence, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, you're seeing MAGA, the base, apoplectic. You see the US Trump establishment. You've heard what is coming out. EU voices now increasingly getting more trenchant. What's happening here? Is this just now about trade, or is there some deeper grievance?
Look, I checked who follows this Gunther fellow. To be honest, I'd never heard of him either. Literally nobody of any value follows him. He's some out there freak show claiming to be close to everyone. He's about as relevant. I mean, I go to Vienna every year for the opera, and I've literally never heard of this guy. No Austrian I know has ever heard of this guy. So let's ignore him for a while. Even in the MAGA base, Peter Navarro put out a tweet. Only one MAGA guy called Jack Posobiec or something got retweeted by Navarro. Even the MAGA base is right now furious with Trump over the Epstein files. Ro Khanna is hosting some hearings out about it. The Republicans are the ones trying to suppress it, and the Democrats are the ones that are now trying to get it out. So quite the opposite. I am not actually seeing, I'm seeing a lot more coming out from MAGA, at least the big MAGA names about Epstein, than I am about the economy, India, and this fellow, like I said, I've literally never heard of him till, your office put me onto his tweets.
Okay, so let me bring back Edward Price. How do you see this play out? This time, Trump doesn't seem to be backing down. There seems to be some sort of a doubling down by him.
Donald Trump, I mean, he does back down often, right, when he's pushed. This is the origin of the taco meme, Trump always chickens out. But he's also very blustery, as you said in your introduction. So I don't think that we're going to see any sort of apologetic behavior from Trump. But again, in his first term, his team always said, look, take him seriously, but not literally. I tend nowadays to take him literally and seriously, but maybe that's a mistake. Maybe we should take him literally and unseriously, because he's done a lot of things. He said a lot of things. Now, the 50% tariff, by the way, does hurt India, does hurt the US. I'm on the record with many, many others who have studied economics and statecraft saying it makes 0 sense. But I'm not in a position where I think that US-India relations are harmed beyond repair. I don't think that that's the case.
Okay, so Abhijit Iyer Mitra on the Indian side, and I'm going to put the same question to Mr. Price. On the Indian side, there's a growing trust deficit. Would you agree with that point of view, that there is something souring? And if Trump doesn't pull back, doesn't chicken out, call it what you want to, there's going to be a disconnect?
There's nothing irretrievable right now. There's only tariffs. There is no bars on technology transfer or anything like that happening at the moment. It is contained. It's certainly gone way beyond what I expected it to. I expected it to remain about India. Look, had it been just about India's high trade barriers, let's not forget Indians are the biggest victims of India's trade barriers. I am forced to pay taxes on cars, domestically produced crap cars that I really don't want to buy. And I have to pay my taxes, and I have to subsidize these big companies who make these crappy cars that I'm forced into buying. I would have actually supported those tariffs. The problem was he had to bring in Russia and oil. And once that comes in, it's your own strategic autonomy and your own interests that get questioned. True. He's overplayed his hand. Even by going by his own book, The Art of the Deal, he's overplayed his hand. He's done it in a very stupid way. And if you go by his tweet yesterday, he is trying to pull down. The very fact that he nominated Sergio Gore to come here as his ambassador would show you he's trying some desperate backroom deal guy. Let's not forget, he yelled at Zelensky in February, and then he became buddies with him 2 months later. So, taco is a thing.
Okay, so the Indian side, growing trust deficit. Edward, how will this impact the 30-year-old effort to making India-US ties viable? Do you feel that there is going to be some sort of, I mean, you've heard Abhijit Iyer Mitra saying it's contained, but what about you?
I hope that any Indians watching this show will listen to a US citizen like me, a Westerner like me, see that I am contrite and I'm apologetic on behalf of my president, and understand that there are many millions like me in this country who love India, think India is a wonderful place, and have every interest in being good to India for its own sake, because, of course, the best thing that the world could arrive at is some form of world peace and diplomatic relations, but also for self-interest. There's a very selfish, self-interested reason that Americans should be nice to India. And that is, of course, that we have this ongoing great power competition with China and with Russia. So for its own sake, I hope for better diplomatic relations between the US and India. Yes, Donald Trump has pretty much thrown away about 30 years of hard work. But there's also a very selfish reason for it, and I hope a very selfish reason for India, because India, of course, is in a very difficult neighborhood. And in the long run, it might be nice to have friends like the United States.
Well, India is now looking to balance its equations with the US by increasing its outreach to the east. Do you think Trump has shot America in the foot as he loses leverage to contain China?
Donald Trump has shot the United States, but it's not in the foot. It's probably in the chest. This is a potentially strategic mortal wound. It's not a flesh wound. It's not the kind of thing that's going to get us out of the battle. It weakens us. You and I were talking about chess because of the board behind me in the preamble. And if you think about chess as an analogy, Donald Trump's 50% tariff on India is a queen fumble. And I'm sure many of your viewers play chess. If they don't, a queen fumble is just about the silliest thing that you can do in chess. It is the unnecessary loss of your most powerful piece. Speed chess players do that all the time. I've been known to do it a couple of times too. But the point is that 50% tariffs on India is the worst possible 21st century geopolitical move right now, for all of the aforementioned reasons. India is a growing superpower. India is a fellow democracy, and India has its own view of the world. It's, of course, a very independently minded country and civilization. And so, for my money, 50% tariffs on India is just about the worst thing that we could do.
The point is whether Trump is listening. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time out. Thank you, viewers, for watching. We were live from the CNN News 18 Primetime Studio, presented by Schneider Electric Smart Home Solutions. The Vantage up next with Palki Sharma.